An n-gon is a face or polygon that is made up of 5 or more sides or edges connected by 5 or more vertices. Anything over a quad is considered an n-gon. Here's the reason for it. If I select everything here and go to edit mode, I'm going to subdivide faces like this. And now you can see that if you look at the edge, triangle, and square, you have smaller versions of itself. With the other three, you just have more sides because the edges are the subdivided ones and not the rest. However, there's a problem with considering hexagons as an n-gon like the others, and here's the first reason. So let me undo this first, and instead, I'm going to do this. So now, each face is subdivided by these triangles from the center, and if you look closely, all these triangles are isosceles except for the hexagon, which is equilateral. So that's one reason why hexagons are too special to be just an n-gon. So now we have these two grids. So if you look at this one, each corner has 4 edges, and each face also has 4 edges. While over here, each vertex has 6 edges, while each face has only 3. So now I'm going to click on the square and do this. So what I did was, I basically got to do over a square grid, which is also a square grid. It's just that it's offset halfway along a diagonal like this. So if I do this, you can see what I mean. I'm going to do the same thing with the triangle grid and do this. So now I get to do all of that, which is actually not a triangle grid, but it's a hexagon grid instead. You can see how that works. And of course, if you look at the square grid, you have 4 edges to a vertex, but 4 edges for a face. While with hexagons, you have 3 edges to a vertex, but 6 around a face. The reason why this is so dual is because you have the same number of edges to a corner as you do with around a face. And over here, you have 3 edges for a corner and 6 around a face. And so if I do this, you got 6 and 3, and then you have 3 and 6, and that's why those are duals of each other. And that's another reason why hexagons do supposed to be n-gons, because squares, hexagons, and triangles are the only 3 regular polygons that can actually test it by themselves on a flat plane without any gaps. You can't do it with pentagons, it's impossible, and definitely not heptagons either. So over here, we have this straight line, and right in the middle is another straight line half the length, but these two angles are 9 degrees, and because of the same angle, you have 1:1 ratio. Over here are the same straight lines, except that instead of 90 and 90, it's 60 and 120, so you have a 1:2 ratio. And of course, we have the two squares, the triangle and hexagon, which are all regular polygons. And now I'll show you what happens if you try to do with other polygons. So now let me do this. So now we have a pentagon and a heptagon. As you can see, unlike the square and hexagon and triangle where the other one of the pair is a regular polygon, that's not the case with these two, because over here you have a trapezoid and you have an isosceles triangle, because this is the same length but this is not. And it's because, well, this is between 4 and 6, and so the other one would have to be between 4 and 3, but since it's not a whole number between those two, this happens. And of course with heptagon here, because it's more than 6 sides, that means that the other one has to be less than 3. So we can't get less than 3 without being a 2-sided polygon, or a dodecgon in this case. So instead, just get a isosceles triangle. And of course, I could do this too. What I mean is that you can actually get these two to be regular polygons, but then you have to do this. So you can see that they're not polygons, they're polygrams. And if you look over here, the reason why it doesn't work is because, so on a polygram, you have all these edges overlapping each other as an intersecting. And of course, it also overlaps a pentagon and heptagon as well. So that's why we only do this with squares, triangles, and hexagons. Everything else will just fail. So now these 5 polygons have now been triangulated, so every single face is a triangle, so no squares, pentagon, hexagons, and so on. As you can see, there's only 2 equilateral triangles here, which would be, of course, the standard one, and also the one you get with a hexagon. If you look over here, these 3 corners, if you two get rid of them, you would get this triangle right here. There's only one you can get with the equilateral triangle, because if you go to heptagon, it doesn't work because it's isosceles, because this is longer than that. And with pentagons, well, there's only one way you can do this, and that's also not equilateral because that's way shorter than this. And with squares, nope, because, well, just like a pentagon, it's only one way, and this is isosceles. And of course, with this triangle right here, it's already a triangle. So yeah, that's another reason why hexagons are not really an n-gon. I showed you why hexagons are special, but I didn't show you about pentagons yet, so here goes. So first I'm going to click on this cube, and then do this. Let's use the subdividing surface, like this. If I apply it, now I'm going to have to do this. So, edit mode, and I'm going to have to be back when I get done with this. Okay, I'm back, and that took a while, but here goes. So now I'm going to delete these edges by pressing this and dissolve edges. And now I have the dual of that square grid on that sphere. So now you can see that instead of, like edges that are 3 into the 4, you now have triangle faces. So that's how that works. And now let's do something with the triangle grid over here. So now let me just do this real quick. Okay, I'm back again, and now I'm going to do the same thing I did with the square grid on a sphere. Just, solidify like this and apply it. So this should be a little quicker, because all I have to do is, since all these are like hexagons, and then you have triangles here, because, you have this hexagon right here, and then triangle here, I just do this. So, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to select all these. So I could do this right here. Actually, I forgot something. Let me go back. I need to select this one too, so let's do that. Okay, now I can do this. Oh, let me undo that though. Okay, now I can do this, and now I can just press delete and then dissolve vertices. Now same thing with this. Okay, and now, and there you go. I have a dual of the triangle grid, and now just like how with the original cube, you actually had, the original sphere, you had all faces being quads, and you have all corners being 4, except for 8 was a 3. And because of it, the dual will have square faces except for 8 was a triangles. With this one, you actually have, well, originally it was all triangle faces, and all corners had 6 except for 12, which is 5. So the dual would be all hexagon faces except for 12, which is all pentagons. So now you can see that pentagons have a place too, not just hexagons, as the reasons why they shouldn't be considered just N-gons. And now I could do this. So if I were to, have these two in view, so you can now see that you have square and triangle faces, and you can have those two grouped together. And then over here, you can have hexagon and pentagon faces. And let's see if I find pentagon. There you go, hexagon and pentagon faces, and they can be grouped together as well. I'll explain that later. So now I have these 8 prisms. You got triangle, square, pentagon, hexagon, heptagon, octagon, decagon, and dodecagon. So now I'm going to go through how these are going to be working this one. And what I mean is this. So I'm going to click on the cube, and I'm going to increase this. So yeah, you can see that when I subdivide a cube with the smooth thing, it does get a nice topology. In fact, it's just like that one sphere with those square faces and the 8 triangle vertices. So here, let me just do this real quick. So the truth is that I don't have a stand for my microphone, so I have to hold my microphone while I do the voiceover. And that means I have only one hand to actually use my computer. So yeah, I don't have 3 hands, so it's quite hard for me to do this. So anyways, back to this video now. So you can see that you have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you have the other 4 down here, 8 vertices that have 3 edges to the 4. So now I'm going to show you how you do with the other ones. So if I now do with the hexagon, this happens. So 1, 2, 3, same amount? Yes. Okay, so if you move the cube one, you have this right here, you have 4. On the hexagon prism, you have 6 instead, and that's because of the hexagon face. So they have this nice topology as well. Now, of course, you might be like, that's not very good. I mean, it is not bad though. Like, if you look over here to center, you get the exact same intersections you get with the triangle grid. So it's still not a bad one. And also, if you look at side view, it's not as round looking as if it was with the cube. Well, that's because you have rectangle faces and you get these. And now this, instead of only 8 corners that have 3 instead of 4 edges, you have 12 because, hexagon has 1/2 times as many sides as squares. Another thing is, if you look over here, you actually have this nice transition where you have from here, go down, and then here, you go up like this, and then from here, if you can see it, yeah, so you have a trigon formation. While this cube right here, you have just 1, and then 2, and that's it. So now, let me be back with the next one. Okay, so now we're going to have a triangle right here, and if I do the same thing, this happens. So if you look over here, so with the square one, you have this loop right here being like straight. If you go to hexagon right here, you can see that it actually goes right, so same direction as it is relative to this line. But on a triangle right here, you have it going left instead of right, even though it's on the right side of this line. So that's what happens when you use this subdivision surface, because if you look closely, everything is a quad. And that's why it works best in squares, because, you know, square is a quad, and so it works best on a polygon that has similar size as the subdivision shape itself. So now, if I go to pentagon, well, it's just between these two because, yeah. So that's kind of self-explanatory. Now, of course, with these two, because I have the autonomous sides, you have this one, that, and this. So it's 3 and has 3 sides. This one's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In fact, this makes a pentagram if you think about it. While doing this with this would make a tetragram if you have like 2 dodecgons. And then you get a hexagram with 3 of these. Sorry, 2 of those 3 things. Anyways, you get the point. So now we're back with the other 4. And instead of explaining these other 4, let me just do this. So that would be this right here. So yeah, so because of this, actually no, sorry, what I'm going to say is that, so the triangle right here, you have this like kind of pinching in a little bit. The square is no distorted. With pentagon and hexagon, you get pinching outwards, but it's not too bad. But when you get to like heptagon here, and then octagon, decagon, and then dodecgon, you can see that the more sides you get, the weirder the results are. Because you can see that with this dodecgon, you have this thing going on. So you're back. Okay, so the thing I'll talk about is that if you look closely, you can see that you have all these like arcs over here. And you get these really weird kite shapes right here. And so it's not pretty topology. Unlike if you go to hexagon right here. Let me just try this. Let's see. Okay, here you go. I guess one way to handle that problem. So anyway, so we can see with the hexagon, the arching is not near as bad, and it looks relatively normal. It's not gonna be as good as a cube though. And let me try this again. Center it. Here you go. So not bad as a cube because now you have. I mean, the cube is better only because you know it was a quad with the square faces, but hexagon not too bad. Dodecagon, I wouldn't use that. So that's probably it for this section, maybe.